Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing my September wrap up. I did get quite a bit of reading done. I didn't realize I had read as much as I did. I thought I didn't read that much, but then looking back at it, I got through quite a few books. As always, I'm going to go through the books in the order that I read them in. So the first book that I finished was At Any Turn by Brina Aubrey, and this was the second book in the Gaming the System series. I actually started this at the end of August and I finished this like the first day of September. This book is also following Mia and Adam, but this one is flipped a little bit because we're following the story from Adam's perspective instead of Mia's like we were in the first book. And I will admit, going into that I was a little confused because I didn't know and it wasn't clearly stated that we were going to be following from Adam's perspective. Basically, we just get to see more of them and how they live their lives and how that might not work for the other person. It was just a lot of issues that were going on. It was mostly coming from communication issues. There was a really big problem with Mia and it was clear that there was something wrong with her, but whenever Adam would try to ask her like, hey, you know, what's going on, this doesn't seem normal, are you okay? And she would just be like, I'm fine, or she would put it off, and then or she would be like, I have to tell you something, and then she wouldn't tell him. And I was just like, oh my goodness. I found myself getting so irritated with these characters. If you guys have been seeing me talk about a lot of the new adult romantic books that I've been reading lately, big issue that I have with those is the main problem comes from communication issues, and that was a big thing in this, and I was just so frustrated that happened. I'm pretty sure that I also put up a written review for this, so I will make sure, like I said, to leave the link down below for that so you guys can see more of my thoughts on the story. I did like it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, and I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I finished in September was The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Corey. This book was like on like 2 or 3 of the previous month's TBRs, and it just kept getting put off, and then when I finally started it, I read maybe like the first 20 or 30 pages, and then it was sitting around for like 2 weeks without being read. And I really regret that because I really enjoyed it, but I will say that I want to reread this because I feel like I wasn't in the right mood to read this, and I feel like that hindered my enjoyment of the book. But this is basically an Aladdin retelling, and we follow a female genie, and she ends up falling in love with Aladdin, which is basically the premise of the story. But genies aren't allowed to fall in love with humans, and I think this book is so well done. I feel like this is a really underrated book. Maybe about the last quarter of the book was absolutely amazing. It's just everything that the beginning of the book, you know, that first 3/4 of the book was working up towards, and the last quarter it just came together and you understood why certain things work certain ways, and I was just like, oh my goodness, it was so good. But I felt like I didn't react as well as I would have liked to. I was still really excited, and I was just like, wow, this is a really good book. But I feel like the rest of it just, I struggled through it, and it's not the book's fault because I was enjoying it. It's just I was in that mood where I was just like, it's good, but I don't really want to pick it up. I ended up like switching over to the audiobook, and that's pretty much how I got through the rest of it because, okay, I might have gotten farther than, I think I might have got to like 100 pages in of reading it on my own. Yeah, I got a little bit over 100 pages because I remember I was on chapter 11, and then I read the rest of the book, or listened to the rest of it through audiobook, and that helped a lot. So if you guys are trying to read this and struggling through it, I would suggest that. I have not written a review of this just because I didn't want my mood when I was reading this to affect how I saw the book. So for now, I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think this is a really good book, and definitely one that I plan to revisit in the future. And the next book that I finished in September was Frostblood by Ellie Blake, and this was actually a reread for me. And this book follows 17-year-old Ruby, and she is a fireblood living in this ruling class of Frostbloods. And one day she gets discovered, and her mother ends up getting killed, so she swears to take revenge out on the king. And I feel like that's giving a little bit too much away because that is part of the beginning of the story, but that's what's in the synopsis. So I'm not going to tell you any more than that. But like I said, this was a reread for me. I read it last year, I believe, and I do have an ARC review up on my blog. I decided to take my initial rating down. I think I initially gave it 4 stars, and after this reread I decided to take it down to 3 stars. And it's not because of I don't think the book is bad. I just don't think it was as good as I thought it was, because I think I reviewed it like as soon as I finished it, and usually the ending is kind of action packed and is really exciting, and I didn't give it time to sit. You can check out my review for this, but I will say rereading this, I did notice some things that I had picked up before but I don't think I covered in my review. One of the main issues I was having with this was that I felt distant from the character. I don't know if it was me personally or if it had something to do with the writing, but it happened the second time that I was reading, so I don't know if it's just me, because this time I felt like I was more invested in the story, but I still felt like there was a distance between me and the main character, Ruby. And being that this book is being told from her perspective, I'm just like, I shouldn't feel like I can't feel what she's feeling because she is the one relaying the story. I enjoyed it, but like I said, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars for my second time reading. The next book that I finished was Drunk on You by Harper Sloan, and this is the 4th book in the Hopetown series. It is a companion series, so you don't have to read the books in order, and I hadn't heard of this series before I received this book for a review. This book follows Shane and Nikki, and 2 of them are in very similar situations. They both have exes that have cheated on them, and they are not getting they're not getting it that they don't want to get back with them. So they're like constantly around trying to do whatever they can to get back with the person that they cheated on, but Shane and Nikki are just like, no, they don't want to do this. So they come to this agreement to fake date each other to get the other 2 to leave them alone, basically. So that's kind of where the story starts. I really enjoyed the story overall. I think the main reason why I really enjoyed the story was the characters. They went on such a journey about learning about each other and learning about themselves, and making adjustments and making changes, and they went through such a journey together, and I really appreciated that. Not saying that the 2 of them were perfect, and not saying that they were perfect together, but they took the time out to make things work, and I really appreciated that. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I know I'm not really talking about this too much, but that's because I also have a written review up for this book as well, so make sure you check all the links in the description if you guys are interested. Next book that I finished was Temporary by Serena Bowen and Sarah Mayberry, and this book took me completely by surprise. It follows Callan and Grace. Callan is this wealthy Australian bachelor, and Grace she lives in New York, and she is taking care of her teenage sister because her mother is a drug addict, and she isn't there to support either of them. So she is currently taking care of her teenage sister. She is working as a temp, and she just got this job, or got this position at this big company, and she's really hoping that position can become full-time. But like I said, this book took me completely by surprise, because based on the cover, I thought it was just going to be like a hot, steamy romance. Thought that's what it was all going to be about, but it ended up being quite a bit more than that. Now I will say that there were those moments, but I feel like they weren't the focus of the story, which I feel like a lot of the times with books like this, they will focus on that and everything else kind of takes a back seat. And the romance was definitely there, the attraction was there, but it wasn't the most important factor of the story, and I really appreciated that. This was another one of those books where the 2 of them really got to know each other, and it took a minute for them to get to know each other because they both came in with preconceived notions, and they didn't handle situations well. Either one of them didn't, because they both just did stupid stuff sometimes, or they didn't want to see beyond what they thought about a person. So seeing them like really start to learn about each other and kind of change their ways and their view, and it was just, It was really nice reading. This one I definitely recommend. I really enjoyed this. Another one that I'm not really going to talk too much about because I do have a written review and it's been a minute so I don't remember all my thoughts, but definitely go check out the review of that. The next book that I finished was Skip Beat Volume 39 by Yoshiki Nakamura, and this one, I believe I got this volume at the beginning of September because I had it pre-ordered, but I can't really get too much into what this is about because it's so far into the series, but it does give you some bit of backstory about Kyoko. She is the main character. It gives you a little bit more about her mother's backstory and why her mother treated her the way that she did. You know, she got to learn about her mother and what was going on at the time and what happened before that, I guess, like that. And she got to learn about more of how she came to be, and it also branches off into a little bit of other stuff because it goes into like another storyline, or it's starting to go into another storyline. But yeah, that's pretty much what the main focus of this was. I think I read up to maybe like halfway or the majority of this. I had read up to this point when I was reading online, so I didn't read all of it, but I do remember like at least half of it I remember reading online when I was reading it a couple of years back. But I enjoyed it because I just enjoy the overall story. But I will say that this one I didn't necessarily care about that much because I didn't really like her mother. Her mother was kind of, yeah, we're not gonna get into that, but I understood why her mother was the way she was, and I couldn't necessarily fault her too much for that, even though like I have opposing opinions, but everybody handles situations differently, so I can't judge somebody based on the way, well, I can, but it's not the best, you know, it's not always good to judge people based on the decisions that they make, because who knows exactly what I would have done in the same situation. I don't know. But I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it was the first one that there was content in here that I don't remember reading, so I can honestly give my full opinions and not just base it off of past experience. But yeah, can't wait to see where the story goes from here. Okay, so we're getting to the end. The second to last book that I finished in September was Fireblood by Ellie Blake, and this is the second book in the Frostblood saga. I received the arc because I did review the arc of the first book, so they offered up a copy of this for me, which I really appreciate. So this book kind of picks up where the first book left off. We're still following Ruby after some things that take place, and then someone from Sudecia, which is the place in the book where a lot of the Firebloods live. That's pretty much where the rest of the Firebloods that are alive in the world, because all the ones that were in the Frostblood area, which is Tempasia, if I'm saying that right. She was currently living in Tempasia, and she was the only known Fireblood that was still alive, and someone from Sudecia, which is the other place with the Firebloods, comes there to basically try to get her to come back with him. So, you know, make some travels to there, and the story kind of takes off from there. I'm not really going to get into that because I don't want to spoil anything from the first book, and I don't want to get into anything from this book. I will say that I ended up enjoying this a lot more than I enjoyed the first one. Reading this is part of the reason why I decided to lower my rating for Frostblood, but this one I felt way more connected to the main character, and it felt like there was a wall between me and her when she's talking in her own head. And I appreciated that she took a lot of risk. There was consequences to the action. There was just a lot more I felt like that was going on, and it can be me personally, the way I was feeling when I was reading, but there's just something that was definitely different about this one that was better than Frostblood, and I really appreciate it because there wasn't that like middle book slump in trilogies or second book slump or whatever. It definitely improved upon what was brought in Frostblood. So I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I do have a written review up for this one as well. This was a month of written reviews, so you guys could go check that out if you're interested. And the last book that I finished in September was The Blackbird Season by Kate Moretti. I believe that's how you say the name. If not, I'm sorry. This book takes place in this small town called Mount Oanoke, I believe, in Pennsylvania. And one day A Thousand Birds Fall from the Sky. And that's just really big news because it's really small town where nothing really happened. It's just gossip about the people who live there. But like I mentioned, one day 1,000 black birds fall from the sky. Quickly that news kind of falls away because something comes out where a teacher, he's really popular around this community. He is a high school math teacher as well as a baseball coach. He is accused of having an affair with a student. And he is married, and it becomes this big thing. You know, a small town, not much going on. Everybody has to voice their opinions. And this book follows a couple different main characters. It kind of takes off from there, but then the student ends up going missing, and then he's accused of being involved with her disappearance or something like that. And it sounded really, really interesting. And I will say that I did enjoy the story, but I felt like it was lacking something for me. I think one of my biggest issues with this was the characters. I am one of those people who finds it really hard to stay engaged in the story if I don't like the characters. And I didn't really like any of the characters, like none of them. I kind of started to like one of the characters, and I didn't really feel like her story was important to the storyline that I was most focused on. So I was just like, I'm kind of interested in what you're talking about or what's going on in your life, but at the same time I kind of really don't care. So it was interesting to read this because it was a good story. I believe this is like the first mystery thriller type of book that I've ever read, and I appreciated the way it was handled. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was the best. It was like a nice solid mystery thriller. I also have a written review up for this one as well because I got this for review, so I will make sure to leave that down in the description. So out of the 8 books that I read, I have 6 written reviews. I told you guys it was a month for written reviews. These are all the physical books I read as well as like 4 ebooks. And I feel like I had a pretty solid reading month. It was about average to a little over average for reading wise. If you have read any of the books that I talked about today, please let me know what you thought about them in the comments down below. Also, if you haven't read any of these books, let me know what you read in the month of September. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys again in the next one. Bye.